So, welcome back on Lightwave Digital, and this scene I show here, let us call it a science fiction tutorial, includes Roger Young from the movie Starship Troopers. And this setup, so you see a rendering with Lightwave 2024.1 and the latest Octane version for Lightwave, looks by the way in the same way also in 2019.1.5 if you render it with Octane version 4.05, so it's the same, yeah, but you need to render it out, and you see what I do there. So that's what I explain in a second, only if you use Octane as renderer. So the complete scene is built for Octane. Okay, so that's in the beginning. And that little tutorial show in what way you can automate gunfire if you build guns for a spaceship and in the way it works. So you see here a combination of the Lightwave particle system, and on that Lightwave particle system is a real object that is called bullet 50 millimeter. You found it then in the scene editor in the setup, and I show it then. And that have a emission node on there so that it light up. And I can now steer with the velocity of the particle and the motion blur how long that laser shoot here is. Yeah. So the length of the motion blur, if we take a look here in the camera, you see it here. For example, now in the moment is the blur length 100 with 3 motion blur steps in Octane himself, brings then with a velocity from 8000 in the particle system that length. Yeah. So let us go a little bit more in detail. And we take now a look into the scene, and you see here, so let us go to frame 0 to one from that gunfire and to the gun master, so that you see what I do here. I show you a little bit the setup. So the setup is huge, but it's not so complex. Yeah, so you see here the Roger Young. That model is from 2008 from Foundation, by the way. So thanks to Foundation to send me that model and give me that model. And you see here under the gun master movers, and all that gun master movers are parented on the ship himself, a gun master, a gun target, and a bullet. Yeah. So the gun master mover have only one function. With that you can move that complete setup for a gun to a different place on the chip, for example. Yeah. So then you see here the gun master, and the gun master is linked to the Lightwave particle system. And let us show that. So we go here a little bit more. So here, so that we see it. Sorry. And you see here under FX emitter particle system, and in that case that works in real time, so you have not to catch every from that particles. For example, you go to calculate it out and save it then as a motion file for the particles. That's not the thing. You must not do it. So it works in real time. Yeah. So let us take a look in the, I zoom here a little bit out, and it makes sense. Then we see here a gun target. Yeah. So let us go in the FX emitter, and you see here the following, that I built for the burst rate here an envelope. So that means as default, that gun shoot in the second 5 shoots. Yeah, so 5 particles comes out per second. You see it here, generated by second. And over that I do with a modifier a noisy channel. And that noisy channel make it possible that the fire rate is not constant, so it's a variable. Yeah, it's variable. and that make it it looks like a little bit more natural. Yeah. So you have in the fire rate a variation over the time. And the second thing is, if you go under motion, you see here I play with the velocities. So that's the speed from the particle if it comes out. Yeah. For that case, here's a 10,000%. For other guns, is at 8,000%. But that's a very high velocity. Yeah, and it's clear that particle have to fly very fast. Yeah. So, and then we have here a gun target, and that target, for example, for that gun 1, it's called a gun target. Yeah, and that gun target, we need to make the following. I showed here in real time. If I take that gun target, I can do that here. Yeah, so on that gun target is also linked my cannon, and with that I can steer the cannon himself, yeah, if I want, and the cannon will follow to the gun target and will fire on the gun target. That means if you build that kind of setup here, then is it possible to build things like that, so that the cannon, if you animate only that null object, follow automatic, yeah, and the gunfire also. That means then in the, wait a second, let us target on them. When it fire, here that little bullets come out, you can see it here, that little white balls are then linked with a Lightwave instancer, comes then out of that gun. Also every particle represent one from that little geometry balls, and that make it then happen that you can see it also with Octane if you render it. That means if you take a look in the instancer, under the gun master you will find the instance generator, and that instance generator is then linked to that particle system with a bullet 50 millimeter. You can see it here, yeah, and that's there here, yeah, and with that you can shoot then with a gun target, yeah, with a gun target on the target, yeah. So you can also build a setup without that the gun target or the cannon himself follow that gun target. So that's, yeah, you can do it in the way you want, but that show only the principle how it works. Yeah. So for example, if I have now the situation that we have a little spaceship and you will fire on that spaceship, then you can put that gun target and link it on the spaceship. So parent it on the spaceship, yeah, and then you can, with that, if you fire with a particle system on it, yeah, guarantee that the particle system targeted that object. And here under the gun master you can see it under motion that, yeah, every particle will go to the gun target himself. Yeah. So you can do with the particle system one things more. For example, if you work with the particles resistance and something like that, you can vary it a little bit. Here is it all basic standard, so that is simple enough. Yeah, you can also, for example, make it a little more randomizing if you play with the explosion parameter a little bit, so that particles comes out a little bit in variation and so on. But that you can test all for yourself. This little tutorial show only in what way you build that kind of gun setup, so that you can fire it on the gun target. Yeah. So also I have here that master mover inside, and that master mover you can use also if you want, if you for example rotate that it also can do some things. Yeah, so that's a little bit a multiple setup, so that you have some options to work with that little gun setup. Yeah. So the gun master himself, you can give, and I do it for other cannons here, you can see it, for example, if we go a little bit in the timeline, that, wait a second, let us target another gun. Oh, what's happened now? Ah, okay. Another gun, that you can automate also in what direction the gun shoot. Yeah. For that example, if you go in the graph editor, I take a look in what way I realize that. Here you can see it. That the gun master himself have also their noisy channel. Yeah. So it's for every from them. And you can also, if you animate the gun target himself, see that you can do with motion here some things. And in that case, for the guns on the side of the ship, yeah, you can see it here, that gun, I built in here a position, the animated position, and that position oscillate. Yeah. So if you would found out why, the reason is that that gun goes with his automatic fire up and down and up and down. The reason for that is that these 2 points here in the timeline, yeah, oscillate. So interesting on that scene is if you use motion blur, what the particle fire do then there. So if you change the motion blur, you will see that the length of that laser gun fire would be variated. Yes. And another thing is also, and that's interesting, in what way you can animate, for example, so an asteroid field. Very simple. Yeah. So if you set one asteroid, so that's the one asteroid in the scene, all other are instanced copies, or not copies, are instances that are real instances. And if we go to the null asteroid field, you find it then here in the scene. You can go there to the instance and you see that I there with a weight from 50% with a rectangular array build an asteroid field, and that asteroid field have a minimum and maximum scale, so that we have a variation for the sizes from the asteroids. Also, I play a little bit with the offset and with the instance numbers and so on, and also with the x, y, z spacing. And the reason is that I built a setup that no from that instances comes into the ship himself. Yeah, so that's the reason that you find that parameters here. Yeah. So, and then I animate over the time. You see it here, the rotation from that asteroids himself, so that all that asteroids, yeah, rotate a little bit in the time, over the time. Yeah. So, and in the end, if you take a look, you will see that that asteroid field himself, that master object, is also animated. And the reason for that is that I am that way bring it in motion. Yeah. So you see it here after 1400 frames, the asteroid field himself, the complete field, move 5 kilometers. Yeah. So, and the combination of all the techniques in the end bring that render output here. Let it render. So it needs a second, yeah. So the scene have to load into the card, and then I show how many VRAM you need to render the scene out with your computer if you use Octane for Lightwave. And for that scene is it 4.5 gigabyte. Yeah, you can see it here. And that 4.5 gigabyte, yeah, you need a gigabyte more for your display driver. So minimum you need a card with 6 gigabyte to render that scene. So another thing is, if we take a look in that scene, you see here many lights. All that lights are Octane lights. Yeah. So if you click on one from the lights, then you will see that the lights are all Octane lights, and you can then variate that lights and play with it. So in that case, that's your light shaped disk with a black body, and it have temperature, power, and efficiency. So you can play with it and take a look what it do. Yeah. So in that case, here the surface brightness is off. I play only here with the parameters and make a secondary light for the ship himself. So you have also a master light in the scene. In that case, in Octane, is it here the Octane environment daylight, and here we have that background image that built up in the background, that blue universe with some stars and so on. Yeah, so you can play with all the parameters, and you found out in what way it works. So to show you that the motion blur in Octane here is only 3 steps. Yeah, and that 3 steps is enough to build that that laser gun is not a dot, so it's a line. Yeah. So for example, if I showed in the end, in the moment you render it with the IPR as a preview, so there is not the motion blur included, you would see in what it looks like if you build it without motion blur, so that you understand the difference. Yeah. So you see it now, that the points from the gun, so we can also step a little bit forward. Yeah, you can see that now we have here no motion blur in the IPR preview. Now you see what's really happened. So that's really little balls, they glow a little bit. So it makes that glow with the post effects in Octane. You found also in the scene. So if you open the editor, you see here that I have here a post-processing, and you found here the glow and bloom and so. Yeah. And yeah, in that way it works. So after you have built your light setup and your textures and so on, then you can play with the motion blur and also with that post effects to see how it works in combination. Yeah. So in the scene also is that little lander, yeah, from Starship Troopers. You see it here. It fired also. So you have the complete setup. So if you want, you can also build with that lander, build up the Clendatu drop scene, yeah, from Starship Troopers if you want. I think I show it in another version. So you can also make all that doors here, also the indoors, there's inside, yeah, it's not seeable in the moment. So you, if you want, you can do much things with that object. Yeah. By the way, if you have seen one from my preview renderings on my own channel, so there you found also in what way it works if you want to animate light intensity over time. You see it here in the back. Yeah. So let us go a second to the back from the chip with another camera. So we have here different cameras, you have seen that all. And let us take a look. So I hope I found something here. Yeah, let us take that one. I mean that here, yeah. You can then also find out in what way you animated that this backlight here for the engines flicker over the time, yeah. So I have here in the black body emission animated efficiency also with a noisy channel. So I hope you love now the noisy channel. So the noisy channel is a good tool to animate over the time random things. Yeah, so that makes really sense. So now you heard it. The police comes to bring me in the prison. Funny. So I hope you have fun with that scene. See you later, and I hope you can with that scene see in what way you can build science fiction scenes. So later, have a nice time. Greetings at all.